Welcome to Creating Art with Jenny. Today I'm going to share with you how I am painting parsley. It is the only thing I have growing in my garden right now. While I do have my garlic starting to pop through, and I planted my spring onions yesterday, but they're still underneath the soil. But my parsley is thriving and it's overtaking everything, and I was like, oh, I'm going to learn how to paint this. And I thought it would be super easy, and I'm going to tell you, as I move this to the side, I started off with just learning how to look at the leaves, and I got a little better, but it was quite challenging. I have spent all week painting, just learning how to do this, and I've had fun with it, but I've kind of gotten frustrated a little bit too. And I'm going to share with you what I learned and how I learned how to create something that was good. And this one's upside down. Sometimes I always use the front and back of my pages, and so I will turn around because I'm right-handed. I don't like this in my way. Up, and I turned the page too quick, and that was not dry, but that happens. Let's get started. My parsley has grown quite large, and as I was looking at it, I really was trying to notice, like, how does it set up and what does it look like? So I see 3 leaves, and in each leaf there are 3. Even though they're slightly disconnected right here, they come together at 3 right here. And then also when you have one on one side, this goes over. I'm pretty sure this is a flat leaf parsley. And then coming down the stem, I see 1, 2, 3 again. And even down here, the leaves are getting bigger and they fan out greater, and I think that's just because my parsley is grown so large. And then this guy I took off at the beginning of the week, and he's kind of something I look at to help me get started. As I begin, I'm using sap leaf green, and I add a little bit of cobalt blue to make it a little bit more intense, and then I have my perylene green. And then I have my azo green, which is like an olive green. I am going to use my number 2 paintbrush, and let's get started. I will be intermixing these colors because you never want to paint something extremely one color that's too flat. And as I begin, one of the things that I notice is that there's these 3 points, and so instead of just trying to make them super pointy, sometimes I just look at the leaf and I go 1, 2, and 3, and then this one kind of comes out a little bit and this one comes up. And then I can come back in and think about the shape of what it is I was looking at, and thinking about a little bit of a pointy edge, not too pointy though. And this one's a little bit, it comes off a little bit, so that's fine. And as this comes down, it's a line that kind of comes down, not straight, but it's kind of, a little bit fat. And then I'm going to kind of switch to my perylene over here, and I see it come up, and it's just like 1, 2, and 3. And, as 3s and 4s seem to be the, how these are created, and I'm not trying to make it look exactly perfect, but it does need to be, somewhat of a realistic representation of it. And as this comes in, it's nice and smooth. And I'm also going to come over here and do this one's, sometimes they're a little bit more pointy. And then when you start thinking about the shape, you're a little bit more free to let things go and not worry so much about it, because you're like, okay, I've got the shape down, now I'm ready to go. And before I move on from this one, I'm going to add just a little bit of green up here and maybe make this just a tinge bit more pointy. And so now I'm coming down for my next stem that's coming up, and I always like to start with this lower leaf. I don't know why, but it's just kind of easier for me to get it in there. And if you happen to mess up, remember, leaves, growing things are not perfect. They have flaws and imperfections too. So it's easier, and you just really want to think about, maybe the movement. Maybe this one's coming down a little bit. And my main goal when I'm doing this is to try to make sure I'm leaving some dark and lights inside. And maybe you don't always see the leaves, every single leaf. I mean, you cannot paint every single leaf. It's a suggestion. I've said that before in a lot of my videos, is what you're painting is you're painting the suggestion of what this is. And if you are successful at getting the main, flow and look of your parsley, that it looks like a parsley, then you're being successful. And so I'm trying to bring this down. I want it to come like this. And before I moved on, I'm trying to find my little thing that I sometimes like to do, just a quick little line. And I don't even really do it all the time in all of them, but it creates that vein that's shooting through there. So now as I look at my leaf, I know that I'm going to have 2 more coming up. So 1 and 2. And another truth that I know about painting parsley that I found out through my many mistakes is that your stems are thin, so you don't want to make them thick coming down. You need to really look at where they stop and then how they begin again. And if you're not careful, you can really make them too thick and it doesn't look realistic. And as I'm varying this around, I'm going to, I always start over here, and I really should start over here because I am right-handed and I don't want to get my leaf wet. So maybe I'm not seeing all of this right here, so I'm just going to be a little bit less showing what's over here on the upper side and coming down. Because it's, it's tilted to the side, so you're not going to see everything, but maybe you see this leaf come out a little bit more. Thinking about my 3s coming in, I want it to look a little bit more realistic because I'm showing more of it. And sometimes they overlap. So I know that this is pretty flat, so I'm going to come in and add a little bit of darker perylene for some more realistic. And so that's my top leaf, and I'm just going to let it go. I'm trying to show, like a side of it. And over here, it does have 2 smaller leaves coming down. So I'm going to add these in, and these are a little bit just smaller because they're not as old as the other one. And as I paint this too, sometimes I leave the white in here. It kind of makes it look more like it's a reflection off of the, the light. Trying to paint a little fast, be a little loose, have a little fun with it. And then I'm going to start with the top one over here. So it's kind of going off to the side. And don't forget to mix up your values. It just makes it look so much more realistic when you're doing that. I like to paint with a bunch of water. You can see I've hardly dipped my brush back in. Just kind of move it around from here. So always just thinking about the shape of the parsley in my brain. And this one might have gotten a little bit out of hand, a little bit bigger than what I wanted it to be. But again, it's a living plant. It doesn't have to be exactly like what you see. It's a representation. And as long as you get your lights and your darks in there, and you can come back and add some of those lights and darks, it's great. So before this dries, I will do a few lines. And maybe even come in and add a little bit more paint over here. And so I can continue down with my bigger leaves, and I'll do that and I'll show you the end product. My watercolor is complete. I had some fun painting it. You can tell that to me it looks pretty good. I like it. Let's go back and let me show you some of the things that I really did work on this week. So this was just learning how, I make notes all the time when I do things like this needs to be thicker, or I'm just looking at it, keep stems, this says keep stems thin, and I'm just working on this consistently as I'm thinking about the flow of my parsley. And so remember, the truths are that there are 3 leaves, and then let's see how fat these were. These were terrible, and then some of these got better. So I do like to go back, and when I'm looking at my ones I like to circle the ones that I think are realistic looking, and then I always put in my colors that I'm using. And sometimes before I even begin painting something, I will do a color I'm not truly going to paint it in. So I'm not so caught up in the color as I am just trying to figure out like the design of it and the shape of it. And so, I was drawing it. I drew it first, and then I was like, went back and started really painting it. So it was, I spent a lot of time looking at this and doing this, and I hope that I was able to share with you a good way to paint parsley, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you're successful if you choose to do this. All right, enjoy your day. Thank you for watching.